in collaboration with the Catholic-inspired organization, European Young Christian Workers and the European Movement of Christian Workers and other faith-based workers organizations. Well, good afternoon. My name is Olinda. I am the president of the European Movement of Christian Workers. I invite all the participants to introduce themselves, writing your name and the country in the chat. The event will be in English, German, and Spanish. We need to say thanks to ESA, the European Center of Workers, for his support and for this opportunity to talk in different languages. We think together we can do better. Thank you also to our translators who are working now so that we can understand each other. I am sure we will have a very interesting meeting. So thank you, everyone. We are here to discuss and reflect an important matter in promoting employment and decent work in a changing landscape. In fact, no one have imagined that 2020 would have challenges due to the devastating effects of the COVID pandemic. I will give the word to Ignacio Alonso, project manager of the Future of Work, Labor After Laudato Si, which will moderate the first topic. Thank you and good work for everyone.
Hello everyone, thank you Olinda, thank you Edsa, thank you to all the movements in this meeting. I'm happy to moderate the first session, which will be a comment on this ILO report with a specific attention to young people, precarious work and digitalization. And for this session, we have two main speakers. The first one will be Sarah Prenger, International President of JOC, and then we will have Santiago Fischer from a member of the CNE, the Employees Trade Union of the Confederation, ACB-CSC, if I'm not wrong, based in Belgium. And he's also part of the We Social Movement, WSM. So please, Sarah, you have the floor.
Thanks, Ignacio. And a very good afternoon or evening or morning to everyone. Also greetings from the International Young Christian Workers. And thanks for this opportunity to comment on the report. Ich werde jetzt auf Deutsch weitersprechen, weil ich weiß, dass Übersetzer es hassen, wenn jemand die eigene Muttersprache sprechen kann und es nicht tut. Deswegen nutze ich diese Gelegenheit. Und auch nochmal vielen Dank an die Übersetzer. Und genau, wie wir alle wissen, geht es darum, den Bericht der ILO-Kommission der Cannes zu kommentieren. Und einer der Hintergründe, die ich hatte dabei, ist die Analyse der JOC, der International Young Christian Workers, die wir im letzten Jahr durchgeführt haben, als wir Nationalbewegungen in der ganzen Welt gefragt haben, was sind die Auswirkungen der Covid-Pandemie auf junge Menschen? Und Nationalbewegungen aus der ganzen Welt haben geantwortet. Und diese Analyse haben wir zusammengefasst in einem Dokument, das wir auch gleich im Chat teilen werden, wenn irgendjemand Interesse hat. Und in diesem Dokument sagen wir schon viel aus über natürlich die Realität junger Menschen, aber auch prekäre Arbeit und Digitalisierung. Also genau die Themen, zu denen ich gleich ein paar bescheidene Anmerkungen machen darf. Es gab ja verschiedene Leitfragen für unsere Kommentare und gleich beginnend mit der ersten Leitfrage, nämlich was passiert eigentlich durch die Pandemie mit jungen Menschen auf der ganzen Welt und insgesamt in der Arbeitswelt? Und wo bin ich einverstanden mit dem Bericht? Und erstmal ist es total klar und fast schon eine Binsenweisheit, dass die Pandemie bestehende Ungleichheiten noch verschärft hat und gleichzeitig betont hat. Und es ist auch, glaube ich, vielen von uns bewusst, dass die Covid-Pandemie zu einem immensen Effekt geführt hat auf die Lebens- und Arbeitsbedingungen von Menschen weltweit. Und ein Aspekt dabei ist auch ein unglaublicher Verlust von Erwerbsarbeit. Das ist einerseits wirklich der Verlust von Jobs, aber auch von Erwerbsarbeitsstunden. Und der ILO-Monitor vom September 2020 hat festgestellt, dass der Verlust an Arbeitsstunden, der passiert ist, sogar noch größer ist als das, was vorher geschätzt wurde. Wir reden im Moment von 495 Millionen Vollarbeitsplätzen in Stunden, die verloren gegangen sind. Und dabei ist natürlich klar, dass es nicht das Gleiche ist in allen Ländern und auch nicht in allen Regionen der Welt und auch nicht in allen Wirtschaftssektoren. Und manche Sektoren, wie zum Beispiel Tourismus, Gastronomie, Einzelhandel und verarbeitendes Gewerbe, sind stärker betroffen als andere. Und zugleich wissen wir auch, dass es natürlich auch Sektoren gab, die wir alle als essentiell betitelt haben. Ne, dabei vielleicht auch Sektoren, die wir vorher immer gar nicht so als so wichtig betroffen gesehen haben, wie zum Beispiel Gebäudereinigung. Aber Reinigung wurde genauso wie Pflege und Gesundheit als essentiell bezeichnet. Und das bedeutet natürlich einerseits eine höhere Wertschätzung für diese Bereiche, aber zugleich bedeutet es auch für die Arbeitnehmer in diesen Bereichen, dass sie länger arbeiten mussten, dass sie mit starkem psychischen und physischen Stress konfrontiert wurden und dass sie auch ein höheres Infektionsrisiko hatten und haben. Und nicht in allen Bereichen gibt es entsprechende Schutzmaßnahmen. Und dabei ist zu bedenken, dass natürlich auch in diesen Bereichen, gerade in denen auch sehr viele Frauen arbeiten, es auch schon vorher viele prekäre Erwerbsarbeitsverhältnisse gibt und gab. Eine weitere Vorbemerkung grundsätzlich zum Bericht ist, wo ich einverstanden bin und wo die IZ einverstanden ist, dass Sozialschutz in vielen Ländern dieser Erde inexistent ist und da, wo es ihn gibt, an vielen Stellen nicht ausreichend ist für eine Krise wie die unsere heute, für diese globale Gesundheitskrise. Insgesamt die Gruppen, die verwundbar sind und waren durch den Verlust von Erwerbsarbeit und gleichzeitig diesen physischen und psychischen Stress, das sind die Gruppen, die vorher schon vulnerabel waren. Insofern auch wieder diese Bemerkung, dass Ungleichheiten, die vorher schon existent waren, jetzt noch deutlicher geworden sind. Und zu diesen Gruppen gehören auch junge Menschen und prekär Beschäftigte. Also genau auch die, auf die ich hier den Fokus legen sollte. Und ich würde einerseits gerne auf junge Menschen eingehen. Und da ist zu sagen, dass junge Menschen ja auch vorher schon vor der Pandemie benachteiligt waren auf dem Erwerbsarbeitsmarkt. Und insgesamt war ja immer schon auch die Erwerbsarbeitslosigkeit junger Menschen höher als die der Gesamtbevölkerung. Und ein Effekt der Finanzkrise war auch, dass besonders junge Menschen, dass unsere Chancen geschmälert wurden in der Erwerbsarbeit. Und also 2019, das war vor Beginn der Pandemie, war die weltweite Jugendarbeitslosigkeit bei 13,6%. Und es ist immer noch höher als vor der Finanzkrise in 2007, wo sie 12,3% war. Und wenn wir jetzt heute auf die Pandemie gucken, da gibt es 3 Mechanismen, die besonders junge Menschen betreffen. Und das ist auf der einen Seite gestörte Bildung. So ganz viele Bildungseinrichtungen. Und das bedeutet einerseits Schulen, aber auch Universitäten und auch, was wir als Berufsbildung bezeichnen, alle diese Institutionen sind geschlossen worden. Und zugleich gibt es eine Problematik für Menschen, die Erwerbsarbeit suchen. Natürlich ganz besonders, wenn den Verlust von Erwerbsarbeit haben, dann ist das schwieriger. Und das betrifft natürlich auch besonders junge Menschen, die vielleicht eigentlich einen Einstieg organisieren wollten in den Erwerbsarbeitsmarkt. Das heißt, sowohl einen neuen Job zu finden, als auch einen Job zu wechseln, ist schwieriger. Und zugleich gibt es einen weltweiten Verlust von Verdiensteinbußen und eine Verschlechterung der Arbeitsbedingungen. Das alles hat junge Menschen betroffen, die aber auch vorher schon überpräsentiert waren in prekärer Arbeit. Insofern redet die ILO von der großen Gefahr für junge Menschen heutzutage, dass wir sozusagen durch die Covid-Pandemie eine sogenannte verlorene Generation haben, eine sogenannte Lockdown-Generation. Und das drückt sich auch in Zahlen aus, denn laut der ILO hat mehr als jeder 6. befragte junge Mensch seit Beginn der Krise aufgehört zu arbeiten. Und bei denjenigen, die noch in der Erwerbsarbeit sind, ist die Arbeitszeit um 23% gesunken. Und dabei ist natürlich auch wieder die Frage der Ungleichheit zu sehen. Das ist nämlich nicht weltweit gleich. Und diese Ungleichheit betrifft auch besonders die Frage von Bildung. Denn die Schließung von Bildungseinrichtungen ist offenkundig in den Ländern schwieriger, in denen es keine ausreichende digitale Infrastruktur gibt. Weil nämlich in den Ländern, wo das möglich ist, viel Bildung dann auf digitale Bildung umgestellt wurde und es zumindest noch Fernunterricht gab, während das natürlich nicht in allen Ländern möglich ist. Insofern ist da auch nochmal die Ungleichheit zwischen und auch innerhalb von Ländern größer geworden, weil auch die Chancen in den reicheren Ländern, in denen es digitale Infrastruktur gibt, für die jungen Menschen geringer sind, die vielleicht nicht einen eigenen Arbeitsraum haben zu Hause und die nicht eine gute Infrastruktur haben oder die auch keinen eigenen Computer haben, um entsprechend dann an dem Bildungsangebot teilzunehmen, in der gleichen Weise wie wohlhabendere junge Menschen. Und diese Ungleichheiten, die es in dem Moment gibt, die drücken sich natürlich auch in dem weiteren Leben aus, weil dieser Bildungsmoment ist nicht nur der Moment jetzt gerade, das wird in den nächsten Jahren noch eine Rolle spielen. Auch da ist dieser Begriff einer Lockdown-Generation ja wirklich auch als Frage für die nächsten Jahre zu sehen und nicht nur für jetzt. Der andere Aspekt ist der Aspekt von prekärer Erwerbsarbeit. Da gibt es eigentlich 2 Komponenten, die sehr wichtig sind. Das eine ist, dass Menschen in prekärer Erwerbsarbeit besonders durch die Krise betroffen sind. Aber das andere ist, dass zugleich prekäre Erwerbsarbeit zunimmt. Auf der einen Seite ist natürlich so, dass Menschen, die befristete Erwerbsarbeitsverträge haben, in einer Situation, in der Menschen entlassen werden, als erstes entlassen werden und auch als erstes entlassen wurden. Und zugleich haben wir eine Zunahme von unfreiwilliger Teilzeitarbeit. Wir haben eine Zunahme von sogenannten Zero-Hour-Contracts und wir haben eine Zunahme von Plattformarbeit. Und die Menschen, die in prekärer Erwerbsarbeit waren und die in den sogenannten essentiellen Dienstleistungen tätig sind, die waren eben mit diesem erhöhten Infektionsrisiko konfrontiert, mit dem erhöhten Stress, mit auch einer fehlenden Gesundheitsversorgung oder einer fehlenden sozialen Absicherung im Fall von einer Covid-Infektion. Und wenn diese Menschen in Bereichen tätig waren, die sozusagen unterbrochen wurden, die einen enormen Arbeitsplatzverlust erlebt haben und erleben, da ist auch wieder diese Frage von fehlendem sozialen Schutz relevant, weil oft prekär Beschäftigte weniger soziale Absicherung haben als sogenannte Normal- oder Festbeschäftigte. Eine andere Frage, die es schon vor der Pandemie gab, und die haben wir auch in der Zukunft der Arbeit-Debatte 2019 stark diskutiert, ist diese Frage, wer ist eigentlich der Erwerbsarbeitende, wer ist der Angestellte Und wer ist vielleicht auch die Arbeitgeberin? Diese Frage, who is who? Wer ist wer? Die wurde durch die Covid-Pandemie nochmal verstärkt. Und dabei ist zu bedenken, dass fast die Hälfte der weltweit Beschäftigten, also 47%, sind de facto oder formal selbstständig bzw. scheinselbstständig oder auch freiberuflich. Und da sind viele dieser Menschen sind nicht durch eine Kranken- oder durch eine Arbeitslosenversicherung abgedeckt. Und in vielen Ländern wurden dazu auch Maßnahmen ergriffen, gerade in dieser Covid-Pandemie, aber das reicht nicht aus. Und da sind wir schon wieder bei dem Thema von Sozialschutz und sozialer Sicherung. Auf der anderen Seite ist es vielleicht auch als Chance zu sehen, dass die prekäre Situation prekärer Erwerbsarbeitende deutlich wurde und deutlich wird und dass es wirklich einen sehr großen Handlungsbedarf gibt, um ihre Arbeitsbedingungen zu verbessern. Das ist sehr deutlich in dem Report, aber in dem Bericht, aber auch in anderen Berichten, die jetzt die Grundlage bilden für diese Arbeitskonferenz. Und ich habe jetzt die ganze Zeit über Plattformarbeit auch gesprochen. Und wenn wir über Plattformarbeit sprechen, da sind wir schon in einem anderen Thema, auf das ich eingehen sollte. Das ist das Thema Digitalisierung. Und insgesamt ist deutlich, dass diese Covid-Pandemie Digitalisierung beschleunigt. Der Internationale Arbeitgeberverband spricht davon, dass es einerseits neue Geschäftsmodelle gibt. Also insgesamt gibt es mehr Online-Plattformen. Die technologischen Skills, die es schon vorher gab und die technologischen Mittel, die wurden enorm aufgebaut. Das merken wir auch alle. Ne? Wir alle haben jetzt so unglaublich viele Webinare und Zoom-Konferenzen und andere Konferenzen und so. Ne? Und Voiceboxer ist auch ein Upgrading. Also so. Auf der einen Seite gibt es da eine enorme Entwicklung und es gibt diese neuen Formen und aber ganz deutlich gibt es neue Herausforderungen für alle Beteiligten in dieser digitalen Gesellschaft und insbesondere auch für Arbeitgeber und Arbeitnehmer. Erstmal ist es ja zu sagen, dass es vielleicht nicht schlecht ist, dass einige Betriebe auch weitermachen konnten durch Homeoffice, durch sogenannte Telearbeit. Und dass einige Kundenkontakte, die es vorher gab und die vielleicht auch ein Ansteckungsrisiko bedeutet haben, ersetzt werden konnten durch digitalen Handel. Und wenn wir insgesamt von Arbeit zu Hause sprechen, dann, auch wenn das eigentlich das Thema gleich der KAB ist, möchte ich das kurz erwähnen, dass Heimarbeit ja auch schon, abgesehen von Homeoffice und von digitaler Arbeit, eine große Haupteinkommensquelle ist für viele Menschen auf der ganzen Welt und viele von denen Frauen und viele von denen informell beschäftigt. Insofern ist vielleicht diese Pandemie und diese große Diskussion, die wir haben um Arbeit von zu Hause und um Telearbeit, vielleicht ist es auch eine Chance, um insgesamt nochmal zu diskutieren über Arbeit von zu Hause. Und aber ja, um wieder auf Telearbeit einzugehen, dass die Telearbeit ist enorm angestiegen durch diese Pandemie. Im März 2020 hat fast jeder 5. Arbeitnehmer weltweit telegearbeitet. Und da sind ja schon einige Herausforderungen zu sehen, auch für die Erwerbsarbeitnehmer. Obwohl das natürlich, ne, also man spart sich den Arbeitsweg zur Arbeit, es gibt auch positive Effekte. Aber eine große Frage ist diese Frage, wer trägt eigentlich die Kosten von einer Arbeit zu Hause? Also wir brauchen alle Strom, wir brauchen alle Möbel, wir brauchen einen Computer, wir brauchen eine Internetverbindung. Und wer bezahlt das? Wenn das am Erwerbsarbeitsort im Büro passiert, dann ist es eigentlich klar, dass es eine Arbeitgeberverantwortung ist. Aber in der Heimarbeit zahlen viele Arbeitnehmer das selbst. Ein weiteres Thema ist auch eine Verwischung der Grenzen zwischen Privat- und Berufsleben und das Recht, sich auch mal abzukoppeln. Das, was auch oft als Right to Disconnect bezeichnet wird. Das ist eine große Frage. Wenn einfach auch mal klar sein muss, okay, diese 8 Stunden sind jetzt vorbei oder was auch immer im Arbeitsvertrag vereinbart wurde und dann ist auch vorbei. Auch das ist eine große Frage für Telearbeit. Insgesamt gibt es eine Tendenz zu längeren Erwerbsarbeitszeiten und es ist natürlich auch eine große Herausforderung für Menschen, die eine Familie haben, die Arbeit von zu Hause mit der Familienarbeit zu kombinieren. Es gibt außerdem ein Risiko der Isolierung alle möglichen Begegnungen, die sonst vielleicht automatisch am Erwerbsarbeitsort passieren, die passieren von zu Hause aus nicht mehr so. Und diese Isolation kann Risiken haben für die Gesundheit der Erwerbsarbeitenden, aber natürlich auch ein großes Risiko für die Frage von Organisation. Also sonst sprichst du dich vielleicht auch mal automatisch ab darüber, wenn du nicht einverstanden bist mit irgendwas, was am Arbeitsort passiert. Aber das ist wesentlich schwieriger in der Frage von Heimarbeit. Insofern ist es auch eine Frage für Gewerkschaften. Wie garantieren wir weiterhin, dass Erwerbsarbeitende in Kontakt bleiben und sich organisieren? Ja, all diese Fragen müssen wir weiter diskutieren. Und auch hierbei ist natürlich zu erwähnen, dass es eine große Kluft zwischen Ländern gibt. Weil in einigen Ländern diese digitale Infrastruktur vorhanden ist und in anderen nicht. Und es ist auch eine Frage von Sektoren. In welchen Sektoren ist es möglich, dass Menschen Homeoffice machen, in manchen, in anderen nicht. Und insofern ist da auch wieder die Frage von dieser digitalen Kluft, die wir haben weltweit und die eigentlich geschlossen werden muss. Und es ist auch eine Kluft zwischen Stadt und Land. Selbst in Ländern, wo Menschen denken, dass es vorhanden ist, ist es oft nur in großen Städten vorhanden. Insofern ist die Frage von einem Recht auf Internet im Endeffekt, weil es in dieser heutigen Gesellschaft wirklich relevant ist, um sich zu beteiligen an dieser Gesellschaft, ist eine Frage, die auch mit Sozialschutz zusammenhängt. Die weitere Frage, die sozusagen eine Leitfrage war für unsere Kommentare, ist eine Frage, die von einem globalen Zukunft der Arbeit Projekt kommt. Diese Frage von, wenn wir davon ausgehen, dass Arbeit Sorge ist und Sorge Arbeit ist, was bedeutet das eigentlich für die Debatten, die wir im Moment auch im Rahmen der ILO haben? Und dazu würde ich auf der einen Seite als CIOlerin sagen, mit Josef Kadein, Arbeit ist ja Teil unserer Mission. Also wir alle sind berufen, das Reich Gottes auf Erden zu verwirklichen. Also Frieden, Solidarität, Menschlichkeit. Und Arbeit ist, dass wir uns um uns und um den anderen und um die Erde kümmern müssen. Insofern ist Arbeit nicht irgendwas, was wir einfach nur verkaufen und was dann nichts mit uns zu tun hat. Und insofern hat es alles wirklich tief zu tun mit unserer Menschenwürde. Und insofern müssen Erwerbsarbeitsbedingungen auch menschenwürdig sein. Und da ist schon mal ein großer Widerspruch zu prekären Erwerbsarbeitsbedingungen vorhanden. Zugleich ist klar auch, dass Arbeit ja eine Beziehung ist. Wenn wir uns um andere kümmern müssen, ist Arbeit eine Beziehung. Und es kann eigentlich nicht sein, dass diese Beziehung quasi geleugnet wird, dadurch, dass wir irgendwie Zero-Hour-Contracts haben und immer nur für ein paar Stunden irgendwo sind. Und auch in der Plattformarbeit, wenn das dann dazu führt, dass es gar nicht mehr klar ist, wer ist eigentlich wer, dann ist ja schon die Frage, wie reden wir noch von einer Beziehung? Wenn gar nicht klar ist, in welcher Beziehung sind wir hier überhaupt? Und auf der anderen Seite natürlich, wenn wir sagen, Arbeit ist Sorge und Sorge ist Arbeit, dann bedeutet das, dass die allerwichtigste Erwerbsarbeit und Arbeit, die wir haben auf dieser Erde, in dieser Gesellschaft, Sorge- und Pflegearbeit ist. Und die muss entsprechend gewürdigt werden und muss eigentlich auch die besten Erwerbsarbeitsbedingungen haben von allen Erwerbsarbeitsformen. Und wenn wir da jetzt nochmal auf die heutige Realität gucken, da ist es ja so, dass Menschen bessere Erwerbsarbeitsbedingungen und bessere Gehälter haben, wenn sie Waffen produzieren, als wenn sie alte Menschen pflegen. Und das ist ja schon eine Frage, was sagt das eigentlich über unsere Gesellschaft aus? Das ist doch, also da spricht doch kein Respekt vor Menschenwürde hinter, in dieser Bewertung, die da zum Ausdruck kommt. Ja, die nächste Frage war, was ist nötig, um auf diese Herausforderungen zu reagieren? Und auf der einen Seite würde ich sagen, ja, ich stimme da an vielen Stellen mit dem Bericht überein, dass wir einen wirklichen qualitativen Sozialschutz für alle brauchen. Und wie schon angesprochen, das bedeutet wirklich, dass wir eine öffentliche Infrastruktur brauchen mit einem Zugang zu Strom und Internet, aber natürlich auch zu Gesundheitsvorsorge, zu öffentlichen Verkehrsmitteln, zu Wasser, einen Zugang zu Bildung, zu qualitativer Bildung auch und ein Sicherheitsnetz für alle für den Fall des Verlustes der Arbeitslosigkeit. Und das sollte auch informelle Beschäftigte und prekäre Beschäftigte alle einschließen. Und was vielleicht in einem Report nicht so zum Ausdruck kommt, aber was ich hinzufügen würde, ist, dass dieser Sozialschutz natürlich solidarisch finanziert werden muss. Und alle müssen sich daran beteiligen, aber Menschen auch, die mehr Geld zur Verfügung haben, haben auch mehr Verpflichtung, dazu beizutragen. Und die digitalen transnationalen Konzerne, die alle so profitiert haben von dieser Krise, müssen entsprechend Steuern zahlen, um zu diesem Sozialschutz beizutragen. Und auf der anderen Seite brauchen wir eine wirkliche Anerkennung von Sorgearbeit, eine wirkliche Anerkennung, dass dies wirklich die Form von Erwerbsarbeit ist, insgesamt von Arbeit, die relevant ist und am relevantesten ist für uns alle. Und insgesamt brauchen wir natürlich eine menschenwürdige Erwerbsarbeit für alle. Und dazu gehört auch, dass Arbeitnehmerrechte in dieser digitalen Welt weiterentwickelt werden und aktualisiert werden müssen.
Sarah?
Ja.
2 more minutes.
Ja, das ist, danke für den Hinweis, Ignacio. Insofern komme ich auch schon zum Ende, weil viele der Dinge, die ich hier sage, hat auch die Kommission gesagt. Und insofern beantworte ich schon diese Frage der Übereinstimmung und der Bewertung der Empfehlungen der Kommission. Eine letzte Frage noch vielleicht, weil natürlich auch es ist viel vom nachhaltigen Wachstum die Rede, den wir voranbringen müssen, um das alles zu erreichen. Und die Frage ist ein bisschen, ja, was heißt das? Und ich denke, dass wir natürlich, wenn wir von nachhaltigem Wachstum reden, auch mit bedenken müssen, dass es insgesamt Grenzen gibt von dem, was Menschen leisten können und Grenzen gibt von dem, was auch ökologisch an Ressourcen auf dieser Erde zur Verfügung steht. Insofern auch bei aller Digitalisierung ist auch da die Nachhaltigkeit mit zu bedenken. Die Frage von Erwerbsarbeitsbedingungen für Menschen, die unsere digitalen Devices produzieren und auch die Frage von, wie viele ökologische Ressourcen haben wir eigentlich in dieser ganzen Debatte und wo sind da auch Grenzen zu haben. Vielen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit und ich gebe schon zurück an Ignacio und dann später an Santiago. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön, Sarah. Thank you very much. So for these words, for the analysis of the ILO report, to what the youth, or how youth are also affected by the pandemic, and yeah, and I think it was for the first time that I heard in German the notion of care is work, work is care, and that sounds very, very nice for my ears. So I'm also happy to see so many familiar faces and organizations represented in the webinar. So before going into Santiago Fischer's intervention, don't forget to use the chat box also for comments and questions, since we would like to have something like 20 minutes to answer some of the questions from the audience. So Santiago, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Donc merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. Je vais donc m'exprimer en français. Donc voilà, je coupais l'écho qu'il y avait dans la traduction. Alors, donc merci beaucoup Sarah pour ces premiers mots d'introduction qui ont vraiment bien expliqué quels sont tous les enjeux que nous vivons suite à cette pandémie. Alors, c'est vrai que la pandémie du Covid-19 a accéléré les inégalités déjà présentes dans nos sociétés et spécialement dans le monde du travail. Alors, les 86 organisations partenaires de WSM qui sont actives en Amérique latine, en Asie, en Afrique, n'ont eu de cesse d'ailleurs de nous alerter ces derniers mois sur les impacts négatifs des mesures de confinement visant à enrayer la propagation du virus, notamment donc les impacts négatifs sur les populations les plus fragiles, les plus vulnérables. Et nous pensons particulièrement aux travailleurs informels, en ce compris les travailleurs domestiques, les jeunes, les personnes âgées, les travailleurs agricoles, les migrants, les femmes, les LGBTQI, donc vraiment toute une série de personnes très vulnérables. Malgré les aides massives mises en place dans l'urgence par les États pour protéger les travailleurs informels, force est de constater que les résultats sont mitigés. En cause, la difficulté pour ces aides d'arriver jusqu'aux personnes concernées, et cela à cause de la nature invisible, parfois insaisissable de ces travailleurs. Alors, dans cette période de transition qui devrait nous amener tous et toutes vers un monde Covid, vers un monde post-Covid, pardon, nous l'espérons, il apparaît urgent d'accélérer la transition de l'économie informelle vers l'économie formelle, telle qu'indiquée dans la recommandation 204 de l'OIT. Et pour nous, c'est vraiment la clé pour augmenter la résilience des populations face aux multiples crises encore à venir. Alors, les chaînes globales de valeur qui sont chères à notre économie néolibérale ont montré leurs limites pendant cette pandémie. Dans le secteur du textile, par exemple, des usines de production ont dû fermer et mettre des milliers de travailleurs, le plus souvent des femmes, au chômage, car des firmes donneuses d'ordre avaient annulé massivement des commandes. Et tout ça, c'était à cause de la baisse massive de la croissance et de la consommation. Pour nous, il faut vraiment accélérer l'élaboration de cadres normatifs rendant obligatoire le devoir de vigilance des entreprises, et cela afin d'éviter que ce genre de violation se répète. Cela doit se faire au niveau international, des continents et aussi des pays nationaux. Pour nous, les trois niveaux doivent se renforcer les uns les autres pour avoir des législations robustes, fortes. L'Union européenne, par exemple, va bientôt travailler sur une proposition de directive que nous espérons ambitieuse. Certains pays européens ont approuvé ou sont en voie d'approuver des législations domestiques comme la France, les Pays-Bas, l'Allemagne et la Belgique. Leur société civile organisée, elle fait pression sans relâche pour voir ces cadres législatifs adoptés. Et donc, par exemple, en Belgique, WSM prend part activement à cette coalition qui a permis qu'une proposition de loi soit très bientôt discutée au sein de notre Parlement. Alors, les effets négatifs sur les chaînes d'approvisionnement que nous avons vus lors de cette pandémie nous montrent aussi qu'il est temps de relocaliser nos économies. Nous pouvons privilégier des petites unités de production, comme nous le propose le modèle prôné par les entreprises de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Ces unités de production mettent les travailleurs et les travailleuses au centre des décisions, au moyen de processus décisionnels très démocratiques, très transparents, et avec un partage des richesses qui est beaucoup plus solidaire entre les travailleurs. Le but n'est pas d'alimenter des actionnaires, mais bien les travailleurs et les travailleuses. Et c'est l'avenir de notre monde, selon nous, car ce modèle est écologique, il est durable et il est respectueux des travailleurs et des travailleuses. Alors pour nous aussi, pour WSM, formaliser l'économie, c'est aussi œuvrer pour augmenter l'accès à la protection sociale de ces populations. La pandémie a mis en lumière, mais même si c'était déjà assez clair pour nos organisations aujourd'hui présentes, les énormes inégalités sur la planète en termes d'accès à la protection sociale. Pour couvrir leur population lors des multiples accidents ou d'étapes qui jalonnent nos vies, certains pays ont besoin d'un coup de pouce, malheureusement. Si la mise en place de systèmes de protection sociale relève le plus souvent de la volonté politique, car normalement ils sont accessibles financièrement à ces pays, il reste en effet encore une série de pays qui ont besoin de l'aide internationale, de notre solidarité. Pour cela, nous devons soutenir l'élaboration d'un fonds mondial pour la protection sociale afin qu'un rêve d'un monde beaucoup plus égalitaire devienne enfin réalité. Enfin, nous considérons que le monde d'après Covid doit donner une place de choix au dialogue social. Les partenaires sociaux, les syndicats, doivent en effet jouer un rôle clé afin de prendre part de manière apaisée et respectueuse aux besoins de tous les partenaires du marché du travail. Ce dialogue social doit être étendu aussi aux organisations représentatives des travailleurs, souvent les travailleurs informels qui, eux, ne sont pas représentés par des syndicats. Enfin, pour terminer, nous tenons à souligner que c'est la force des mouvements sociaux, leur capacité de s'organiser, d'être des acteurs de changement, qui vont permettre d'assurer une récupération durable suite à la pandémie. Soutenons cette capacité de se rassembler et de trouver des solutions, d'être des acteurs de terrain, afin d'être consultés et impliqués dans le monde de demain. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Santiago, for the presentation. And I think that the last message is quite important. Also, in your presentation, when you were mentioning the importance of social dialogue, not only for the post-COVID world, but I think right now too is very necessary, and that of course it has to be extended to all workers, but especially for the informal ones, and also the key role that social partners should play, no? Being in a respectful, in a critical, but also in a peaceful way and manner. So I couldn't find any questions or comments in the chat box. in any language, but I don't know if anyone would like to take the floor or have a quick reaction to what was proposed by Sara and also by Santiago. So we have a question for both of you, for Santiago and for Sara, from Sots Blamink, and the question is, how will we extend social dialogue to informal workers in practice? Sara?
Ja, ganz kurz. Also insgesamt ist ja, wird ja gleich in der nächsten Session auch die internationale KAB on informelle Arbeit und Migration in Länder eingehen. Deswegen habe ich versucht, so wenig wie möglich dazu zu sagen, obwohl das echt schwierig ist bei dem Thema. Genau, aber insgesamt ist es natürlich, es hängt ja zusammen mit dieser Frage, wer ist der Erwerbsarbeitnehmende in vielen Bereichen, und das betrifft ja auch viel in der informellen Wirtschaft. Insofern muss diese Frage mitbedacht werden. Und sozialer Dialog ist ja nicht sozusagen, also es geht ja insgesamt darum, wie können wir sicherstellen, dass alle Menschen einen gleichen Einfluss haben auf Entscheidungen, die getroffen werden. Und das ist ja die Frage, die wir sicherstellen müssen, dass alle Menschen sich beteiligen können, gleichbedeutend an der Frage, wie organisieren wir unsere Arbeit und unser Leben, welche Gesetze werden beschlossen und wie beteiligen wir uns auch alle solidarisch an der Finanzierung des Gemeinwohls.
Thank you. Santiago, would you like to add?
Oui, merci beaucoup. Oui, je vais répondre. Donc, merci pour l'intéressante question. Je dirais qu'il y a deux pistes par rapport à comment étendre le dialogue social. La première chose, c'est qu'il faut pouvoir effectivement assurer cette capacité d'organisation pour tous les travailleurs. Et je pense que Sarah l'a tout à fait bien souligné en introduction. Le fait d'avoir des travailleurs éloignés qui sont chez eux, qui n'ont pas cette capacité de s'organiser, ou en tout cas, cette capacité de s'organiser est affaiblie, eh bien, on pense que c'est vraiment dommageable par rapport au dialogue social. Et donc, la première chose, c'est de pouvoir, dans un monde post-Covid, c'est de pouvoir revenir au travail d'une certaine manière et de pouvoir de nouveau avoir cette capacité de s'organiser. Alors, ce n'est pas toujours facile d'avoir cette capacité de s'organiser, notamment vers les travailleurs informels. C'est pour ça qu'il faut absolument que cette convention, cette recommandation 204 de l'OIT soit prise en main par les différents pays pour faciliter cette transition et donc pour faciliter l'inclusion et l'organisation des travailleurs informels. En fait, il faut vraiment que ces travailleurs informels aient cette capacité de s'organiser, de se mettre ensemble pour créer des syndicats. Mais alors après, et ça c'est la deuxième chose que je dirais, il faut qu'il y ait une reconnaissance des syndicats et du dialogue social dans les pays. Il y a encore beaucoup trop de pays où le dialogue social, où la liberté syndicale n'est pas assurée, où la liberté de négociation collective n'est pas du tout assurée. On travaille sur beaucoup de pays, je pense que vous aussi, vous travaillez sur de nombreux pays, donc notamment, par exemple, je vais citer le Guatemala, où le pays est très régulièrement pointé du doigt pour des déficits de liberté syndicale. Je pense qu'il faut avant tout installer un environnement favorable dans les différents pays, dans le monde entier, qui permettent au dialogue social, aux syndicats, d'avoir cette liberté de manifester. Et je vais juste donner un exemple pour montrer que cette lutte, elle se fait au quotidien. Par exemple, en Belgique, quand il y a des grandes manifestations syndicales, dans les médias, on va souvent entendre le fait que le premier sujet dans les médias, dans un journal télévisé, c'est quels seront les embarras de circulation, quels seront les ponts, les routes qui seront coupées. Alors qu'en fait, il devrait d'abord parler des revendications des syndicats. Et tout ça, ça instaure un climat défavorable. Et idem, les représentants politiques souvent ne mettent pas en avant les bienfaits du dialogue social. Et donc, je pense que c'est ça qu'il faut, c'est installer un environnement favorable aux syndicats en disant, voilà, il y a une valeur ajoutée du dialogue social, des syndicats. Il faut pouvoir discuter ensemble pour trouver des solutions dans un climat apaisé. Voilà.
Ignacio, very short, if I may.
Yes, actually I was going to call you again.
Ah, okay.
But yeah,
No,
Go ahead.
just one small comment. Because if we tend to think a lot, there's informal workers and there's formal workers. And sometimes this goes along with this notion as if in the formal work, everything is fine. But that is obviously not the case. No, even in a formal and stable work, there's many issues. But we also really have this big issue of precarious work. And it's mainly an issue of young workers, but it's also an issue of all over the world. We do have this issue of temporary workers. And just talking about Belgium, which is a rich country, but we have people there with one week contracts and working for years in 1 week contracts, looking every week again if they're going to work again next week. And no, and we do have zero-hour contracts, and we even have also temporary contracts of 3 months, of 1 year, etc. And it's not like in these types of work, it is really clear that you can have an influence to your workplace, because of course, if you will start organizing, it's very, very clear that your employment relationship will finish, and it's not illegal because you will not be fired. Just your contract will not be continued. So that's really a question. This question of precarious work, we should not forget it. And yeah, the other question, just know when I say that we have to be aware of the limits of what we can invest in any growth which we think we can have. The other question is really about the equal distribution and the justice that we need to realize in the society.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ignacio. I think that goes really in line with the question raised by Hilda Hagemann from Colping, and I think that there is a very interesting comment coming from Karin Papp from WIGO IDWF. She is saying that inclusion of informal workers into social dialogue forum will be one of the major demands of the informal workers delegations from StreetNet, WIGO, and IDWF for the ILO Social Protection Committee. Let's remember that also social protection is one of the main items this year in the agenda of the International Labour Conference. And she adds that we have some good examples where this already works. For example, in my home country, Argentina. So I would like to make another question to both of you, coming from Cecilia Nicoletti, if I'm not wrong, from Caritas Internationalis. And the question is, in the COVID pandemic, we have experienced many vulnerable kids, adolescents, and young people, especially migrant kids, dropping out of schools and high schools or keeping behind due to lack of technological advices. How can states and NGOs contribute to fill this educational gap, which will have negative impacts on their work in the future? I think that's a key question, since we can see that everywhere containment measures have disrupted education, training, and also work-based learning. So I give you the floor. Santiago, Sara.
Yeah, maybe just to follow this, what is obviously already in one habit. I will intervene first and then Santiago may add. No, just, yeah, obviously it's a very crucial question. Maybe one first notion for all of us would be also to think about education, not only be a formal thing. No, so people who just missed a lot of time at school, is not that they should just learn more and study harder and then everything will be fine. But there have been experiences being missed. There have been occasions to meet with other people, to learn collectively, have been missed. And in that case, it's really crucial that we are also aware of the importance of movements like us and other movements and organizations, and also of what we call non-formal education, to make sure that this opportunity will be given to young people too. And otherwise, we do need to think of measures to maybe, yeah, to really make sure that these missed opportunities will not cause what I mentioned already, this lockdown generation. And we also need to make sure that we will bridge this digital divide, which we have. No, it's for education, but it's also for work. It's for the justice in this world, that we need to bridge this digital divide and give access to all people to internet and electricity today in this what we call modern world.
Alors, je vais peut-être répondre aussi, du coup, Ignacio, comme tu m'as donné la parole aussi. Je dirais, du point de vue de WSM, hein, c'est évidemment que c'est un drame, toutes les écoles qui ont fermé, toutes les opportunités manquées pour la jeunesse, pour les enfants. Et c'est vrai que nous, on prend du point de vue aussi, en termes de protection sociale, on estime que l'éducation, la formation est un moment essentiel de la vie d'une personne et que c'est une étape qui les prépare à devenir des citoyens de demain. Alors effectivement, pour nous, c'est vraiment ça doit à chaque fois être une priorité des différents pays de mettre en avant la protection de cette jeunesse, le fait de permettre aux enfants, aux jeunes d'aller étudier, d'aller à l'école, et pour ceux qui n'étudient plus, en tout cas de leur permettre de continuer à se former professionnellement. Et donc, clairement, nous, avec les différents partenaires de WSM et WSM, on a toujours, en tout cas, fait pression sur les différents gouvernements pour qu'il y ait une continuité pédagogique, de formation et d'appui aux jeunes pour qu'il ne soit pas une génération de perdus, une génération Covid qui, du coup, n'est pas bénéficié des mêmes chances que les autres. Et cette génération, elle est essentielle parce que c'est une génération qui va devoir affronter les changements climatiques, toutes les mesures qui vont être prises pour lutter contre le changement climatique et qui risquent d'avoir donc des incidences sur le marché du travail aussi, des impacts sur le marché du travail. Donc, en tout cas, voilà, il est vraiment essentiel d'assurer cette continuité parce que ça permettra en tout cas selon nous, ça fait partie d'un plan plus large qui assure la protection sociale des personnes, c'est donc cette continuité pédagogique. Ouais.
Thank you, Santiago. I think that we're going around this idea of the lockdown generation, no, and its complexity, and well, in regarding to the education topic, we have a comment from Litsa. She says that Caritas India in the villages is organizing non-formal education for children out of school and cannot have access to technology through child parliament leaders following the protocols. I think that has been a crucial thing and really happening worldwide, no? I see in the audience that we have a lot of youth organizations represented, so I would certainly like to hear their voice, read their comments, and also because I think that we have a unique diversity in the webinar. It will be very, very interesting to hear their insights. So I have another question coming from Cecilia Nicoletti. With regard to work conditions in this COVID crisis, we experience in Italy that many entrepreneurs increase in low-paid work for many hours with no security measures and non-structure, but totally legal. They were interviewed and said, "We can't do otherwise. We are amid the COVID crisis." What to do to address this problem, involving business into a dialogue on decent work? I think that's certainly a key question. I don't want to say an eternal question in the ILO debate, and I have been involved in our discussions recently with Sarah in this topic, so I would certainly like to her to take the floor first.
Thanks, Ignacio. Yes, I would also say it's an eternal question. And it's also actually one of the questions in the report. Because while I do agree with many of what is written there, and I stated that in my comments, there's also one of the sentences really like saying we do have these issues of the loss of the workplace, and we do have this issue of precarization because the employers were doing it because of the COVID. And you see really the urge for the justification in the sentences. And yes, I guess it's very clear for all of us, no? If the restaurants, they didn't have any income, so at some point, some restaurant had to be closed, and they had to reduce, or they had to fire their workers. No, that's understandable. However, I am still remembering the situation during the financial crisis, because we had the very same talking there and the very same issue. And I still hear the employers saying, we need more flexibility in the labor market, because right now we have the financial crisis, and we're very sorry. We really don't want it, but we have to act like we do right now. But in the reality, we do still have this question of precarious work, of incredible youth unemployment all over the world until today. We even had it, as I said, 2019, before the COVID pandemic, but long after the financial crisis. And we have had really huge austerity measures, actually weakening social protection in many countries, including the European Union. So the key question is maybe not for now only, because, okay, now everything can be justified with the COVID, but the question is for the long term. Because you can say, okay, but the question is, how do we guarantee a labor law which makes sure that we have dignified work for all, and also a really, really strong social protection system, including a solidarity contribution from all. But no, because I think that could also maybe be one answer to these employers in Italy. Okay, now you have to do that, but why do you have to do that? One of the reasons also that we do not have a strong social protection system. And please, meaning we have to be really, we have to make sure that this will not happen again. So in that case, we all have to invest in a just and solidarity and strong social protection system also for the future, starting now.
Merci, hein, Sarah. Moi, je pense que c'est un très bon exemple, hein, et ici, ce qui est cité par rapport à l'Italie, mais ça, évidemment, on a tous expérimenté dans les différents pays, chez nous ou ailleurs. Je dirais quand même que il faut quand même utiliser la force des travailleurs et des travailleuses. On doit s'organiser de plus en plus et on doit lutter. En fait, il faut réinstaller un nouveau rapport de force. On doit être combatif, en fait, hein, et ce rapport de force, c'est le seul moyen, en fait, pour ramener les chefs d'entreprise, en fait, pour les ramener, pour revenir ensemble à une table de dialogue social, et pour qu'ils nous prennent en considération, pour qu'ils prennent les travailleurs en considération. Parce qu'en fait, le problème, c'est ça, c'est que je pense que les employeurs nous croient faibles, croient les travailleurs faibles pour l'instant, parce qu'on est abattus par les mesures Covid. Mais en fait, on doit montrer qu'on est plus fort que ça et qu'on peut rebondir. Et je pense que cette attitude combative est tout à fait... elle est conciliable avec l'approche de dialogue, parce qu'en fait, c'est vraiment ce combat qui va permettre de revenir et de dialoguer, de montrer qu'on est un acteur présent et légitime. Et c'est dans l'esprit, en fait, de l'OIT et de la Conférence internationale du travail. C'est un dialogue tripartite, vous le savez, à l'OIT. C'est la seule institution des Nations Unies où on a une représentation des travailleurs, des employeurs et des États. Et les employeurs sont représentés au même titre que les travailleurs, donc on est à égalité. C'est les États qui ont un peu plus en termes de représentation. Mais donc cet esprit de tripartisme, hein, cet esprit de dialogue social, on doit vraiment se battre pour le conserver, mais je crois que pour le conserver, on doit montrer un peu plus des dents. Hein, c'est une expression pour dire qu'on doit être beaucoup plus combatif pour montrer qu'on ne se laisse pas faire. Voilà.
Thank you, Santiago. And yeah, we still have almost 10 more minutes in this session, but regarding to what Sarah said, I think that it's, of course, pre-pandemic already youth, we were twice as likely as others to be unemployed, right? And also youth have suffered a devastating blow to their immediate and longer term prospects in the world of work. So in line with this, and using the last minutes we have, I would like to maybe to hear from you, Sarah, and what you hear from your members worldwide. What is the most urgent action that needs to be taken? And I think that we already in this session already have a lot of elements that will help you to shape some kind of a strategy on how we can do maybe some common activity in the context of this particular and unique ILC. And this also goes to Santiago. What do you think that it could be a way in which we can really add something to this year's ILC?
Yeah, it's a huge question. And I think we also have many young Christian workers here please feel free to also add your proposals in the chat. But and of course, no, what we demand is really we have many things, because also the realities today, they're so diverse and we have so many challenges. And to put it clearly, it's of course we want to have dignified work for all and a strong social protection system for all. And when we talk about the dignified work for all, it is, as I said, really including a relevant way of valuing and valorizing, including the working conditions for care workers. And it includes also the issue of precarious work, informal work, and platform work in these days. And on the other hand, really this issue of justice and solidarity, it should not be ignored. Because when we talk about social protection, yeah, everyone can agree on that, but we want people to pay who actually profited from this crisis.
Oui, merci. Merci, oui, non, mais je vais aller dans le même sens que Sarah. Je pense que c'était déjà une très bonne conclusion. Voilà, se battre pour le travail décent et pour une extension de la protection sociale, c'est ce qui nous paraît primordial. Et du coup, je vais me permettre de réinsister sur la question du Fonds mondial pour la protection sociale, qui est donc une initiative lancée par les Nations Unies, mais donc appuyée par pas mal d'organisations de la société civile au niveau international, pour vraiment s'assurer que tout le monde a accès ici maintenant à une protection sociale complète, parce que souvent, dans la plupart des pays, on a une protection sociale qui est malheureusement très incomplète, qui ne protège seulement, par exemple, que pour une partie des risques, alors qu'il y a énormément de risques auxquels on fait face tout au long de notre vie, hein, que ce soit le chômage, la retraite, la naissance d'un enfant, l'accouchement, donc les maladies. Donc voilà, il faut vraiment que tous les risques soient couverts, et ça permet d'avoir une dignité dans le travail, parce qu'on peut vivre décemment. En fait, c'est une vision en fait de se dire que le travail décent, c'est bien, mais il faut que la vie soit décente d'une manière générale. Donc, on peut avoir un travail décent et être bien traité par son employeur, c'est très bien, mais il faut qu'à côté, on ait aussi une vie décente, et ça, c'est la protection sociale qui nous amène ça, parce qu'on y contribue, et quand on n'a pas les moyens pour y contribuer, il faut que le reste de la société puisse nous aider à vivre cette vie décente, et donc c'est se tourner vers beaucoup plus de solidarité. Et donc, au début de la pandémie, je pense que beaucoup dans nos organisations pensaient qu'on aurait directement, automatiquement, un monde nouveau, beaucoup plus solidaire. Alors, on se trompe, on se rend compte qu'il va falloir vraiment se battre pour avoir ce monde plus solidaire. Et je pense qu'un des exemples, c'est la question des vaccins, de l'accès aux vaccins pour tous. Et donc, ici en Europe, on a lancé une campagne qui s'appelle Non-Profit on Pandemic, pas de profit sur la pandémie. Donc, je vous invite à aller sur le site web pour signer la pétition européenne, parce que c'est une pétition qui demande en fait qu'il y ait un partage équitable des vaccins, parce que ça ne sert pas à grand-chose qu'il y ait juste une partie de l'humanité, les plus riches, qui soient vaccinés. Pour l'instant, on estime qu'il y a à peine 10 pays qui ont administré 80% des vaccins. C'est absolument effroyable d'entendre ça. Donc, en fait, on a besoin de partager ces vaccins. Donc, on doit lever les brevets et les donner et les mettre dans la sphère publique pour qu'il y ait une fabrication beaucoup plus importante, beaucoup plus rapide, et que tout le monde, les pays les plus précaires, tout le monde, tous les travailleurs, les travailleuses, tous les jeunes puissent en profiter.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Santiago. And I think that before closing, there is a strong message coming from CIOC, adding, I think, to what Sarah mentioned, that says we need to make the young people aware of their rights as workers, not to be scared to stand for their rights. I think that is a strong and key message. And of course, it's undoubtedly that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed and exacerbated existing inequalities, but that shouldn't be an excuse not to act. So following the agenda, first of all, I would like to thanks the audience for all your comments, and especially both to Sarah Prenger and Santiago Fischer for their input. I think it was very, very rich to hear your analysis, taking into consideration ILO findings, also coming from the Future of Work Labor After Laudato Si project, our report, Care is Work, Work is Care, and most especially the bringing up your own experiences in your organizations. So that being said, we're going to reconvene in 5 minutes and for the second session. And I would like to close this one. So now we have 5 minutes to go for a coffee. I will still drink my mate. And yeah, thank you very much.
Is it fine now? Okay. It's fine now. Okay. Find out the voice box. I'm sorry about that. So maybe we can start. I really apologize for that. And I welcome you back from the break. Hope I'm now audible enough. And thank you, Ignacio, for taking us in the first session as the moderator. Then in the second session, is it clear now? Okay. Then in the second session, I'm going to do the moderation, but then we shall receive first comment about the report from Jean-Claude, the co-president of World Christian Workers Movement, and a second comment from Nicola, professor of international migration at Queen Mary University of London, a researcher of the ABI in Germany. Then afterwards, we shall have other comments from the CIOs and other working organizations. Maybe now you can have the floor, Jean-Claude. Hello.
Nous écoutons. Jean-Claude n'a pas réussi de rentrer dans la conférence. Jean-Claude não chegou, não há conseguido. C'est possible que je peux parler un peu sur ce qu'il pensait de parler, d'organiser un peu cette session. Bien, la situation que notre responsabilité au monde mondial de parler est un peu la question des travailleurs informels. et aussi sur la migration et la question des genres. Nous avons vu un peu cette situation dans le monde aujourd'hui, que nous sommes 700 millions de personnes dans le monde. Qui n'a pas de travail, n'a pas de conditions et qui vivent dans l'extrême pauvreté. Et comme nous avons parlé, nous avons écouté dans de notre rencontre aujourd'hui, la question de la pandémie. Je vais me rapporter la situation des deux pays directement où nous sommes. Rodrigues, qui c'est une île dans l'océan Indien, et aussi République centrafricaine. La majorité des travailleurs Rodrigues, dans les îles Rodrigues, vivent de l'économie informelle. Et avec la pandémie, la situation de pandémie, la question de vie, c'est plus difficile. La majorité des gens, il n'y a pas de travail. Et quand nous parlons de cette situation, parce que tout arrêté, la majorité des gens a vécu du tourisme. Le tourisme qui est un peu de la vie des gens dans cette île. L'autre question, c'est aussi République dominicaine. C'est de penser, on parle de République dominicaine, mais la majorité des gens sortent pour travailler. Même qui n'a pas condition de sortir, mais devrait sortir pour chercher conditions de manger à chaque jour. Et avec ça, nous voyons que la majorité sont des femmes qui sortent pour faire ce travail. Et quand nous rentrons aussi l'Amérique latine, l'Asie, la situation des migrants, c'est encore plus difficile. Et les gens cherchent moyens pour survivre. Rencontrer moyens de survivre. Et nous voyons que cette elle a détruit, elle vient aussi pour aider un peu plus la vie des gens. Et quand nous parlons sur la protection sociale, c'est la chose la plus importante pour la vie humaine. S'il n'y a pas de protection sociale, il n'y a pas de conditions de vie. La santé, l'éducation, l'habitation, le travail. Où est le travail? C'est ça notre préoccupation comme un mouvement. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut continuer à faire dans cette situation? Nous voyons l'importance de continuer notre travail. Mais les défis pour nous, comme un mouvement, MTC, JOC, CIOC et les autres, comment nous pourrions mieux organiser, vraiment rencontrer la justice sociale. Comment faire? J'ai écouté aussi au fin de cette mot qui Santiago a dit la question des vaccins. S'il n'y a pas de vaccins, il n'y a pas de conditions de vie. Les migrants vont souffrir plus. Nous voyons en Asie, nous voyons en Amérique, nous voyons en Afrique qu'il y a beaucoup de gens qui sont migrants et qui vivent des situations inhumaines. Nous, comme un mouvement mondial, c'est ça notre défi avec les autres organisations. Comment faire? Nous voyons que cette discussion ici dans les séminaires, c'est très important pour trouver des chemins. comment faire. Et tous les documents qui ont été bien décrits, de faire, c'est la réalité que nous vivons, mais aussi s'approcher des gens plus pauvres. Si j'ai des faim, je vais écouter parler, mais j'ai besoin de manger. J'ai besoin d'un travail. C'est ça pour nous. Comment nous pourrions faire ça? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire dans ces sujets? Les documents sont là. Les documents montrent à nous la vraie réalité que nous vivons et que nous devrions faire attention à nous aussi, parce que c'est difficile avec notre responsabilité de trouver des chemins. Et nous sommes ensemble, nous vivons cette réalité. Et c'est ça pour nous, comment mondial, ces défis. La migration, le travail informel, que la majorité des travailleurs aujourd'hui perdent son travail. Il y a le télétravail, oui, mais par quelle catégorie de travailleurs, travailleuses? Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de travailleurs qui n'ont pas le télétravail, doivent sortir tous les jours. L'équipe de médecins, d'infirmiers aujourd'hui, et aussi les gens qui travaillent aussi dans l'artisanat, avec l'artisanat. C'est une diversité que nous vivons aujourd'hui. Et j'ai dit à vous un peu pour finaliser, je demande un peu de pardon parce que nous voyons beaucoup de choses et comment Jean-Claude a été organisé, il n'est pas là. J'ai dit non, je ne vais pas laisser passer sans parler un peu de la réalité que nous vivons avec nos travailleurs, travailleuses. Je dis à vous pour nous écouter, mais un peu c'est grand. Et aussi, nous ne pouvons pas laisser de dessous Laudato aussi. Hein? Sortir, aller loin de la périphérie. Et c'est ça notre mission, notre service. Merci à tous. On va continuer.
Thank you so much for the presentation. On behalf of the World Christian Workers Movement, I really apologize for the echo. And could you please have Nicola take the floor?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Monica. You can hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a few insights from the perspective of worker migration and migrant workers. I was told to use up 5 minutes to leave enough time for discussions, so I keep my points quite short. Migrant workers in many ways share many characteristics and many issues, as we have heard already from Sarah in the case of youth, as well as in the case of informal workers, as just shared with Marie-Leah, given that migrant workers are also among those groups, but there are also migration-specific issues. Now, the COVID-19 crisis has in many ways amplified already existing issues, which we have had for many decades, but also created new issues, concerns in relation to drivers of migration, so the reasons why people migrate, as well as the outcomes of migration, so what happens in the country of destination. And the crisis has clearly exposed gaps and fault lines in the institutional architecture we see globally, regionally, and nationally, and also the politically highly sensitive nature of migration in relation to specific corridors, again, regionally and also globally, where migrant workers are, of course, often the easy and quick scapegoat for any problem. Decent work deficits are both the key drivers of migration in countries of origin, as well as the key concerns as the result of migration in countries of destination. So COVID-19 has had detrimental effects on the lives of millions of workers worldwide, as we have already heard. But pandemics, as any crisis, are not neutral. They are gendered, and in terms of migrant workers, there are also, there are differences according to ethnicity, race, labor market positioning, and also status as non-citizen. And even worse, if your status is not even just non-citizen, but also undocumented, so to speak, illegal, in illegal status. The world of work is characterized by an intersectional division of labor, which constrains individuals' choices of jobs and places where to find jobs according to gender, race, ethnicity, skills, age, and so forth. So migrants are affected by these intersecting statuses. Migrant women, quite, as has already been said, for women in generally, disproportionately work in more precarious, insecure, and informal employment, which earns them low pay and little socio-legal recognition. And here, what we probably should also bear in mind, when we talk about a single individual migrant worker, we mustn't forget that behind this migrant worker is often an entire family and often left behind. So this family is being supported through remittances. So the income of one worker has to sustain an entire family and often an extended family. Now, these general points lead me to really the two key points I'd like to make here. The first concerns the centrality of care, as also was highlighted in the report, Care is Work, Work is Care. And care really here in relation to migrant workers as care providers. So among the essential workforce, as we have already heard, were obviously care workers, and among the care workforce, a high percentage are migrant workers. But the centrality of care relates also to migrant workers as recipients of care in terms of their own needs and requirements, as in times of COVID, and also in times of in relation to the post-pandemic recovery, either as non-citizens in countries of destination or as premature or unexpected returnees in countries of origin. So here in relation to reintegration and helping them, to find their feet back in their communities of origin. Now, my second key point relates to the heightened urgency of delivering decent work and inclusive, non-discriminatory and gender-responsive policies as part of labor migration governance, which should also be approached from a holistic perspective, meaning covering all stages of migration, the whole migration process, pre-departure, the period migrants spend abroad, and also upon return and reintegration. Now, in relation to my first point, the centrality of care, we know in the care sector, women constitute over 70% of global frontline health and social care workers. So this is a highly gendered workforce. But also in many countries, the part of this workforce is, a high percentage are migrants. Then we also have domestic workers, and of the 67 million worldwide, again, 80% are women. And of those, 11.5 million are migrants. And in some countries, the migrant workforce is 80–90%, as for example, in the Gulf states. Now, as far as domestic work is concerned, there's an additional issue arising from the pandemic because many of them are live-in domestic workers. Migrants are often live-in domestic workers. And we have seen increasing cases of domestic violence of all kinds, physical, verbal, emotional, and sexual. This highlights then also the significance and relevance of ILO Convention 189, decent work for domestic workers, and ILO Convention 190, violence at the workplace, in addition to the Home Worker Convention, which was clearly highlighted in the ILO report. Now, migrants are often among the first to lose their jobs in those sectors which were immediately impacted by lockdown, hospitality, tourism, and so forth. But significant numbers of migrants are also among the so-called essential workforce, where infections were particularly rampant and safety measures rather slow to come. And this is in food, transport, care, as already said, manufacturing of PPE. You might have heard of the case of the Malaysian factories, the factories in Malaysia employing mostly South Asian migrants. And those are also sectors where unionization is rather low or often completely non-existent. Because there are also sectors, sometimes in places where unions find it very difficult to find access. And those sectors are also often under or completely non-regulated, which brings me to the second point, and this is the rights-based governance. Now, migration during COVID has acutely demonstrated the urgent need to realize the key principles of non-discrimination and equality in an intersectional sense, meaning in relation to gender, ethnicity, migration status, skill level, disability, and so forth. And this really in relation to social protection. So we must not discriminate as far as social protection is concerned. And by social protection, I refer to the access to health, income, and food security. Now, as concerns the regulation of labor migration, the key issues that existed already prior to the crisis have in actual fact become worse. Such things as unethical recruitment, the unethical hiring of migrants, then employment practices, below standard working and housing conditions. What we hardly ever hear talk about in global policy fora, however, is wages and their level. There's a silence on it in policy debates, but during COVID, the issue of not only wage loss, but also wage theft in relation to migrant workers has been exposed as a massive problem and is well publicized evidence of the many employers who have taken advantage of the health crisis by laying off migrant workers and having them prematurely deported or returned to their countries of origin. And all of this in the absence of legal and institutional channels available for them to claim back unpaid wages. The issue of wage level is, of course, tied up with collective bargaining processes and collective organizing through trade unions. But as said before, and as was also mentioned by previous speakers, we see a problem with unionization in certain sectors, but also in relation to migrant workers, and especially when they are undocumented, despite these strong advocacy efforts on the part of the global union federations. So we need to see this filtering down to the shop floor level, and reaching out to migrant workers and launching more attempts to organize them and address the practical challenges in getting migrant workers to sign up and join trade unions, if not even form trade unions, which of course in many countries is actually even illegal. So migrant workers, for example, in Thailand, they cannot form their own unions. So to come to a conclusion, post-COVID recovery and the efforts to build back better need to clearly resonate the ethos of the Sustainable Development Goals, and leave no one behind, and take the principles of non-discrimination and universal social protection seriously and beyond verbal pledges. So we really need universal health care, income security, protection along the hiring, employment conditions, and return continuum, along which many migrant workers live their lives. And we need functioning institutional architecture across borders which can deliver this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Nicola, for the wonderful presentation about the migrants with the aim of leaving no one behind. The migrants have really suffered during this COVID pandemic, losing their jobs, safety, and also reduction of wages. On this note, could I please call upon Leza from Caritas India to comment?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity on behalf of Caritas Internationalis. I'm here to speak on the experience, especially from the perspective of India, that we have experiencing due to COVID-19 situation that is in our country with regard to informal sectors that we are here in this session to talk about. And I do agree with Nicola, who has earlier spoken about a lot of the situation of the migrant workers. I would say when we look at pre-COVID-19, the migrant workers have been always an invisible force in the country, especially when I talk from the perspective of India. It has been always invisible workforce, and they were not so much in the political agenda. So there was not many policies which were talking about the situations of the migrant workers, and there even one policy that we had that was also defund, which was not very active. But I would say rather thanks to this COVID-19, which brought the invisible force on the roadside in India, especially the thousands and thousands, and I would say million workers which came out due to COVID-19's lockdown, which happened in the country. And that made everyone to open their eyes and see this is the workforce that we have, and we need to take something into action. And within 1 month of time, we have seen a lot of Supreme Courts, they are coming with their orders for the migrant workers within 1 month, 2 months time, because when the migrant workers came out on the road to walk back to their homes from the cities to their villages, 200 plus migrant workers died. And then there were 680 migrant workers who were affected, injured, and they had a lot of issues. We had done also a study which spoke about 95% migrant workers had lost all their livelihood opportunities. They had no food to eat. Their children were out of 68% children of the migrant workers were without any education or any system to study, no technology for them to study. So this was the situation, and then the support for the migrant workers in India that we are talking of, the situation. Before they were not covered, we had also done a study before COVID-19 of the one state, which is a lot has got trade unions, associations there, but still migrant workers in that particular state, were 95% of them were not covered under any associations, and even they were not part of the trade union. So that was the situation. And here this COVID-19 has made 2-3 times their vulnerability has been now increased. So job loss is one major thing that is there. Social protection, they were earlier not covered under any social protection. So now during this COVID-19, when they have lost their everything, their livelihood, so they cannot even access to those measures which government is bringing about for the migrant workers or in informal sectors that we are talking of. And Nicola also was very rightly mentioning about the domestic workers. In India, we have 80% of the domestic workers are women force that we are talking about. And they were looked at as the persons who are going to spread the virus as well. So there was also some kind of discrimination when the people went back to their villages. Even villages didn't accept them and they had to remain out. And so these kind of discrimination, and so women are out of work and they are in their homes and they have lost their job and they were not paid because they are not coming to work. Why would employer pay them? So they were not getting even their payment, because it's not something contract that you have with your work. So it's a very that kind of work, especially with regard to domestic workers. Construction workers have been suffering a lot, and all in that vendors, any sectors if we can take with regard to the informal economy that we are talking about in this session. So the mobility, I would say there are three issues that we can look at. Mobility was restricted, social protection they didn't have, access to health services or health care that we are talking of. And like Nicola was also talking about the domestic workers, they themselves are providing, or there are many in that matter, care workers, care providing the sectors that we are talking of, and they themselves were out of any care services which they were at this time supposed to receive when we are looking at health facilities or access to health services. So what I would recommend, I just 5 minutes to talk about, it's a very vast sector that we are talking of, informal sector that we are talking. It's a very invisible force. So how ILO's report, I was also going through with little about the informal sectors that they are talking of. How can we make this sector more visible? Of course, now there is a formal sector. Earlier also we were talking about that they have come out of, even they have fallen down, even formal economy. So what about the informal who were not even covered under any social security or social protection that we are here to talk about? So if this we are taking as something that very strongly a social protection of these informal sectors, that if we can, social protection should be strongly promoted for them. Association with the trade unions now, and like they are many of them are not part of. Even sometimes we have also domestic workers who cannot be, government doesn't want to promote the association of domestic workers in our country. And I know like other Gulf countries as well, it could be also issues. So how the trade unions can play here about the taken, or they can be taking a lead role into the into support to these some kind of informal sectors that we are talking of support they can provide through their unions and associations. And also when we are talking of job security to them, now domestic workers cannot go to work, construction sites have been closed. So what's the option? Financial support to these workers, somehow it needs to be ensured through the government policies, or what we are talking of some international, if ILO could take up that kind of financial support mechanisms for these informal to ensure that they have their jobs even when they are not able to receive go for job or have the income or for their livelihood. And other points which I would like also maybe because what I'm seeing in my country is that due to job loss and out of school children, now children are not able to go. So many of these informal sectors, migrant workers, children are becoming prey to child labor and trafficking. So that's another area which somehow I'm not so sure whether that should go under the report or it should be, but I think that needs, when we're talking of child labor, and this year being the international year for against elimination of child labor, can be somehow also put, because there is a lot of, we have a fear among the NGOs within our country as well that this child labor post-COVID is going to rise in the country. So, and also maybe in many other countries as well. And so how this issue of child labor also somehow could be taken care. So these are some of my experience. And then of course, what we are doing, government has come up with some financial support to the people, to the migrant workers who have been infected with COVID-19 and also who have lost their earning members. So many of the, now in India, you all might have seen last 1 month, 1.5 months, we had the peak of COVID and many have lost their lives. Around 300, I think 300,000 plus people have lost, and many of the families have lost their earning members. So now those have become, like Nicola was saying, one earning member supports the whole family back. Now, if that member has been lost, if they have lost that member. So what about the whole family now, their whole family's living conditions, or their the food, the health systems, because they have lost their earning member of the family. So again, that whole system of ILO's convention, I think the migrants and their families needs to be taken care somehow. It should be also addressed when we are talking of post-COVID situation. So thank you. And if you have any questions further, we can have discussions. Yeah. Thank you for providing me this platform to share my experiences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe briefly, with interest of time, at least a minimum of 5 minutes, I can give the floor to Apinya from Caritas, Thailand. Then afterwards, we shall have the Secretary General of ICMC to take the floor. 5 minutes, please. Apinya from Thailand, Caritas, Thailand. If she's not online, then we can have the Secretary General for ICMC.
Okay, thank you very much for calling on me, and it's a great privilege to be with all of you. I'm sorry that more of you cannot be here in Geneva as in past years, but hopefully we will be together in Geneva some other time after the changes with COVID-19. I'd like to share with you that as part of this wider group, ICMC and the Future of Work project were called upon by the Vatican's COVID-19 Commission to prepare a number of briefing papers of the impact on COVID-19 on work and workers. And we prepared 9 briefing papers on different topics, including the situation of the supply chains, of the impact, especially on marginalized workers and informal workers, on women, on a number of different topics. And this information was very much used by the Vatican, as they also did a great deal of advocacy around COVID-19, especially about its impact on the most marginalized populations and the poorer populations. Some of that information also was cited by Pope Francis in his weekly general audiences, and especially during the past summer when he focused all of his audiences during the months of August and into September on COVID-19 and the response of the church. We also worked very hard to present the findings of the ILO on the impact on workers, and also then, of course, connected a great deal between our own future of work efforts and the efforts of the ILO on the future of work. We also have been very busy in working together with a number of the organizations that have been active in the Future of Work initiative. And I want to take a moment to especially thank Ignacio Alonso for all his work on this initiative and his continuing consultation for the initiative. And we had a number of publications that came out. I hope they've all been shared with all of you. And I'm sure Ignacio could remind you where you could find these electronically on our websites. But first of all, ICMC, which led the research track on migrant labor, we published 2 reports. One was a collection of primary research, and also Nicola Piper, whose face I'm looking at on the screen, was one of the main authors of this, one of the overview authors in this publication. We also had a summary of Catholic social teaching related to migration and work, and we had then primary research that was done in South Africa, Philippines, and Taiwan on the impact on migrant workers, the situations of migrant workers. We also then collected from a number of you a number of secondary research and good practice that was published in this, this book already. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's called Toward a Better World, Migrants and Refugees in the World of Work. I recommend it to you, and I'm sure Ignacio can remind you how you could find it. We also wanted to focus not just on research and on theory, but we wanted to focus on real people. And so we published another publication called Driven by the Depth of Love. And this is a photojournalist publication. So it includes photographs and direct testimonies by migrant workers. And I think it's really been a beautiful way to focus on people and not simply on issues. And then finally, we were very much involved together with all of the different partners in the Future of Work initiative on our final report, which is Care is Work, Work is Care. And I think the whole experience of COVID-19 has really taught us that title, that care is work and work is care, not just the kind of medical care or first line interventions, which was heroic during this COVID-19 time, but also all care is work. And we need to return to that and make it people-centered and a work that also then is decent and is dignified. Again, I recommend this book to you as well. And I think this will be, I hope, the platform for our continuing this work in the future on a second wave of the Future of Work initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think with interest of time, we have one question in the chat book.
Hello.
Yes.
You hearing me? Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. Yes, I'm Apinda from Stella Malaysia and the Qualitas Thailand. We're working for the seafarer, and we have a problem with the crew chain crisis. So we handle the case from China about the human trafficking, and we work with the trade union from the ICF, International Transport Worker Federation, in London office, and after that they refer the case to us about the crew chains in Thailand. We're working in Neptune Declaration, and they have a lot of cases in China and fishery in maritime industry. So now we have plenty of cases human trafficking and forced labor at sea because of they are finished the contract, but the ship owner postpone the contract, automatic contract. Now the seafarers strike on board. Some person is 2 years, some 1.5 years.
Excuse me, Apinya. Excuse me if I may interrupt. If you can unmute one of the devices, that would be great, so we can hear the clear sound from you. Thank you. I think you have to mute the voice boxer. Thank you. And you have to turn on your Zoom audio. Yes, and then turn off the voice boxer audio.
So you hearing? Are you hearing? Are you hearing? Are you hearing? Are you hearing?
Yes, but it's still double. You have to turn off the voice
Okay,
boxer.
I will talk later. Okay, I will talk later.
Okay, maybe you can share in the chat. Oh God, this technology. Thank you so much. Maybe we maybe we have only one question in the chat box. It's saying, how to organize care workers that have no social protection and sometimes work for many different employers without security, no holiday. With the pandemic crisis, they lose everything because people are afraid to give work to these people. Maybe we can have one of the speakers to answer this, or anyone.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have Karin Pape with us anymore. She had to leave earlier because she, as you might remember, represents not only Vigo Streetwise, but also spoke on behalf of IDWF. So there is the International Domestic Worker Federation, which has set up national branches in many, many countries to organize domestic workers. So this particular question, I don't know from which country this comes, but there is a global effort to organize domestic workers much more, if you like, strategically, concertedly, with leadership training and so forth. Now, under COVID, it is, of course, a massive problem in terms of employment and working for several employers, and the fear on the part of employers to not, prevent infection. I personally don't have a good practice example in mind here. What I personally know better is the situation of migrant domestic workers who are live-in domestic workers. And here, I suppose, they are part of a bubble. And as I mentioned, for them, the situation, the problem was something else. The problem was either not being let out at all, being completely locked up the whole time, and also being increasingly more subject to violence. So I don't know if someone else has a good practice example for live-out domestic workers. I personally must admit, I can't think of any.
If I can talk, if I can share some, about the care workers, there is, of course, as you mentioned, International Federation for Domestic Workers, and they are in many countries as well. So what I know also in India as well, we are also, organizations are part of this federation, and they do organize domestic workers, full-time, part-time, and live-in domestic workers. They have been trying, and we have good examples where these domestic workers have been, care workers have been organized at the national level, and also at the international level, they do represent. So that's an example, if I can give from our country. There are these unions in some of the states of India. It has been promoted. Domestic workers have their unions, and they do come together, and they do have their associations as well. The only thing now during this COVID-19 where you cannot so much come together, and it's quite difficult to organize care workers because of their working conditions, how they work, because of the part-time live-in, and then they have also full-time who go. So it has been always a challenge. And now COVID-19 has put forward a more challenge to bring them together, where you can't, your mobility is restricted, you can't even move. And so in this situation, when we are talking of their bringing together, or we are talking of their associations, it is a great challenge, what I would say, and also with our experiences in the country. The only thing what I see is that the social protection measures, if could be taken for them, implemented, social security, healthcare facilities could be provided to them. And what we are doing, Caritas India, along with the migrant workers in the country, is that we are providing them food security, means food items we are providing who have lost their job. We are also providing with them with the medical support in the slum areas, in the migrant communities, and where the migrants, many have gone back to their villages where they have lost, and also financial support for them, bank transfers, we call it financial support, if they have lost their earning members. So these are some of the things. Currently, when we're talking of association, I would say rather it's looking at the current scenario when you can't come together, you can't speak, but and when we talk of now we can come together, we are on teleconference, now we can meet. But for them, they do not even have the systems. When we're talking of technology, they either they do not know to access, and many of being women workers, they do not have access to those facilities. So how are we trying to bring them together on one platform when we're talking of associations? So this will be a challenge, but I think if through government or through ILOs, maybe if we can promote the social protection, social care, financial support, job security, healthcare to these workers, that would be helpful at this moment. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Migrants is really a common topic nowadays. I apologize for using more time, but it's an interesting topic we can talk about. I've been Agnes Monica. I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. I've been Agnes Monica from the International Coordination of the Young Christian Workers, and I'm the General Secretary. We're also organizing an international council really based on migration for the young people. And on this note, I would like to give Hildegard to take on the moderation for the next session. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, dear Agnes, for the swift handing over. So we are coming now to the last session of the official session of this webinar. My name is Hildegard Hagemann, and I'm from Kolping International, and I have the pleasure now to guide you through a brief conversation, but a very intensive conversation with our distinguished guest, who is also a very, very dear friend and supporter of our movements for many years already. So right now I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Anna Biondi she's the Deputy Director of the Workers Office at the ILO, the ACTRAF office, and I'm very happy to have you here. You have a very busy schedule, I know now, running up to the ILC. And but I have to say that you are the real stronghold of our civil society organizations, always ready for social dialogue and promoting it, and also giving ready and valuable advice for meaningful engagement also of international organizations and NGOs at the ILC always. So and your support now today is also very important for us, because it's the first time the ILC takes place in a virtual way. So guidance from your side is very welcome. Having said that, I know your time is precious. I would like to ask all participants to hold back a bit with questions, because we have a session afterwards also to clarify some more questions maybe. Please bear with us that Anna is very busy, but she will give us her perspectives now on the ILC and also what this means to us as NGOs. Then secondly, I just want to say Ignacio is ready to take some, what you call that, screenshots from our webinar now. So be aware that you have to smile and be happy in the next 10 minutes so that we have nice screenshots. So please, Anna.
Thank you so much, Hildegard, and very nice talking to you all. You know, it's too bad that usually we would meet at a World Council of Churches and greet each other in person, but you know, we tried, you know, the ILO tried, you know, last year we couldn't have a conference after the centenary conference of 2019. It was decided not to hold the conference in 2020 because of the pandemic. And basically, you know, even if it is certainly not the best scenario, and we really hope that next year we will go back to a conference in person, but at least it was felt that the ILO couldn't go for more than 2 years without meeting at its highest level. And so it was decided to organize this conference only via video conference. In reality, we are already having several meetings of, you know, we try to have some meetings of the workers group, we try to have some meetings of the, you know, in preparation of the work, you know, you have seen probably already the website of the ILO. There was on the 20th of May the opening, that it was just ceremonial, but also in order to get the nomination of all these for example, the officers of the conference, because tomorrow we will start with the Committee on Application of Standard, and on the 3rd of June, it will be really the day when, all the committees start really working. So what you can find already, I saw that I checked before that already you have on the website also the DG's report, or it's called Work in the Time of COVID. I have heard briefly some of the reference of your dialogue before. It's a short document, and you will find indeed also, I say to some of you yesterday, that there is a specific quote of Pope Francis. I think that it would make everybody happy in this group. And also what you will find at the end of this document, there is an outcome document that an appendix where it's a draft outcome document that the governing body decided to insert in this conference. So the conference was already complicated to have it online. And so there is even another committee, that this COVID committee, that it wasn't in the real, in the program that was decided in 2019, So, somebody is calling the ghost committee that is happening. And so we hope that indeed everybody will be also able to, let me explain afterwards who can attend, because, now the problem is that with these Zoom meetings, we can have some people attending, but, it's not like the real conference. So, the virtual thing, it's a little bit what happens with our meeting today. On one hand, we are lucky that we can talk to each other. We are far away. We can get together. On the other hand, somebody is missing the electricity. Somebody doesn't have the Wi-Fi. So we hope that in reality, especially for the colleagues that will have to stay far away from Geneva, that this will work. What happened with the registration for the conference, and this is why I saw that somebody is there also from ESA, I think, and I think I saw yesterday that some of the NGOs that had registered, they hadn't yet inserted the name in the database, this year. And I know that because our dear friend Pierre Martineau is not there, and otherwise it would be pushing all of you. But on the other hand, also Anita, I've seen that Anita has been very good in terms of relaunching to the NGOs that hadn't put in the system, the names of those the participants. If you don't do this, you will not be able to participate in the work of the ILO. So do that if you haven't done it. There was a limit of 5 or 6, 5, then we decided maybe up to 6 if there is just a person that is taking the floor in the plenary, like the general secretary. But in general, you have a limit of 5 persons per NGO to register. And then we discussed about the fact that, to register in the different committees in order to listen. And because it's too complicated to do individual registration for NGOs, because already the system is complicated, basically, all of you that are registered in that NGO that has been accepted to participate at the conference will receive the links to all the committees of the conference. Try not to put everybody, basically it's up to you afterwards, to decide who goes where, those, that one that will go to the Committee on Application of Standard, the one that goes to COVID, the one that goes to Social Security. You divide the work like you would do in a regular conference. the plenaries of the conference are available to everybody. So through the ILO website. So this is also good because you know, if you want, this is also something that before people didn't have the possibility to see it. But once there will be, for example, the World of Work Summit in the plenary, you can say, you can already advertise to all your members, look, if you want to watch this, this will be streamed on the ILO website and everybody can listen to that. You know, we hope that it will be an interesting discussion, as for example all the plenaries speeches that is less interesting usually if you listen to one after the other. But anyway, you know, this is something that if you know somebody wants to follow. So you know, we are preparing this. Also the plenary of the committees will be indeed available for the NGOs. Some of you have also been accredited to the workers group of some of the NGOs that usually work with the workers group. Not all, because at the beginning we had space problem. But if some of you is interested in following also some of the committee of the workers group and you haven't received it, just be in touch with me and we will try to find a way, one way or another. Again, you know, we have a very limited space also, for example, for the committee on application of standards is usually the one where most people want to go. And we have, we need to stick first of all to the workers members, but you know, definitely you can participate in the plenary of the committee. What else? You have also seen probably already, and otherwise you find all this information in the ILO website, that because of this way of working, we are not able to have all the technical discussion that we were supposed to have in June, the one about inequalities and about the one about skills. They will be held, you know, it's like the conference is divided in two. So on the 25th of November, you know, we will restart with the two committees that will were supposed to take place now and that they will take place later. So if some of you are also interested, you know, just like you can also either leave the same persons, you will receive the new contacts, the new links for the committees. If instead you think that there are other colleagues that are more interested in those, you know, you can change, you know, there will be all the summer if you want to go through these. We have at least this flexibility of not having to buy the tickets all together for Geneva in June, you know, so this is also something that you want to consider. So, you know, the main thing is that we are dealing these days with people that have problems in getting the links for the plenaries. You know, yesterday I know that the plenary links for the CAS went out. I didn't receive it. So, you know, just to tell you that, you know, don't think that everything happens for those of you that are far away. It's a mess. We are trying to do the best possible, trying to open up as much as possible. But people also need to understand it's not a regular conference. So don't expect to have everybody to see in the same room. Many of these meetings will be in the webinar setting, meaning that you can see only the meeting like here where we can see everybody. It will be only the person that speaks, and also, you know, again, that is necessary because you know very well when you have when you are dealing with 1,000 people and not like here in a small group, you know, if I start leaving my microphone open and I start talking to my son or my daughter, you know, eventually nobody can hear anything. So, you know, this is again something that we have to keep in mind. But I imagine that you all received, and also, you know, you will know if you haven't received documents also, through the secretariat of the group. I will be happy to share some of the preparatory documents that the workers group has prepared for the different committees. I'm sure I will ask, of course, the possibility to share them with you, but absolutely happy to do that. And if you have some, you will know anyway, many people that are in the secretariat of the different committees, for the CAS, there is Jeroen Bennaert, that is from Belgium, that many of you know, for the social security, Evelyn and others from ITUC Brussels. So, it's like you will find, and otherwise I will be happy to, find informal ways for you to be in touch. But this was the general presentation, a different one, but, let's try to work as much as possible as we usually would do.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the overview, for the introduction, and the very valuable also advice and readiness also to respond to our requests later. So, and by this, I would like to suggest also that we later on discuss among ourselves, and would also then bundle our questions maybe then to you, or sort things out so that it's also not too stressful for you. So thanks for joining us, and time is going on, and by now, I mean, wishing you all the best, saying goodbye, hope you can stay a bit longer. I would like to come now to our final talk, final speech by also a very welcome friend and supporter of our movements.
Ciao, thank you, good luck, and by all means, let's stay in touch informally. I will be very happy. Sorry, one thing that I have to leave. I don't want to leave you, but you know very well that these are days where every minute counts. So many thanks for having me, and next time in person. Bye bye.
Okay, bye Anna, bye, thank you. So here we are. So I would like to introduce to you as I said, a good friend of our movements also, and normally we meet personally in Geneva every time, but now it's virtual. So welcome with me the permanent observer of the Holy See to the UN in Geneva, and UN and other international organizations, of course, Apostolic Nuncio, Archbishop Ivan Jokovic. We are very happy to have you here for our final input now. You will address us from the perspective of the Holy See, what is at stake at the International Labour Conference. And as I said before, normally we meet personally and we have always a good exchange and so on. And so I'm very happy that this tradition continues now, the second time already virtual, because also last year when the ILC was postponed, we managed to have a little webinar with you. So the pandemic is not strong enough to cut our bonds. That is very good. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Hildegard. And hello to everybody. I see many names. Some you know me. I'm admiring you, your engagement, your dedication to the ideals, our dedication, all the dedication to work as somehow first love of the Holy See in Geneva. So I think this is why I'm also honored and happy to be invited and to be with you and follow what you're doing, and also let you know what we do and what is our line of action. I saw among many my friends of mine, we had very busy days. You already know that we have passed probably the last obstacle of becoming a WHO observer no member state, which is something that the Holy See did not have till this moment. Then I would like, this is one thing, and I would thank you also. I saw Bob Vitilo is somewhere on the list.
Mhm.
And also I would like to send my greetings to Pierre. And I think his, how to say, personal experiences also helped us spiritually and humanly, and also so religiously and supernaturally, to continue our work. It is all a gift of our life that we bring to these ideas, and this is what is nourishing us, and we have to stick with this. We have to commit to this. We have to be faithful, and former external circumstances can be certainly a hardship, and this is already visible, but we can so many things learn and to do so many new things, and we have to learn and do it. We have to use every means in order to show that our full dedication to the cause of gospel, and all to do what we do for spreading of the good news in this important, incredibly complex, incredibly unjust, incredibly, how to say, any attribute you can give to the problem of work and the importance of work and the consequences of having it or having it properly. So, dear friends and colleagues, it is a pleasure to meet you in our traditional meeting in preparation of ILO conference. In the last 5 years of work together through the future work of the Laudato Si project and the Caritas in Veritate publication on the thinking labor on the occasion of the centenary of ILO, I had the opportunity to experience your engagement in the impact of your work. Your group has been very supportive to the work of the ILO. I know that some among you already came together in 2013 to support the inclusion of decent work as a goal amongst SDGs. Many among you came to Rome in 2014 at the invitation of Cardinal Turkson and of the ILO to share relevant good practices, supporting your advocacy for decent work. You had some specific interest also for those in needs in the informal economy, the migrant workers. This effort was evidently part of convergence of efforts. In many aspects, the key features and strength of these last 100 years of engagement between the ILO and the Holy See come from the distinctive aspect of the work question. First, that the dignity of work is affirmed and recognized by so many philosophical traditions. Second, that the Church is a synodal approach to salvation, and through her channels and organization has given a voice to peoples and communities to express themselves about their work, their joys, and their suffering, thus transforming them into pleas and prayers. Finally, it has been a constant feature of the social doctrine of the Church to hear and listen, but also to articulate the ethical dilemmas into concerns that can be heard or addressed. Over the COVID crisis appears essentially as a health crisis with very severe and damaging consequences on the world of work. Subsequently, on food and security, with a possibly severe impact on financial institutions, banking and insurance companies, as well as the government finances. At this stage, we should place emphasis on the fact that we are not still on the post-COVID phase. However, we have a sincere hope that soon we'll be there. Over the last year and a half, we experienced three essential impacts on the world of work. First, we have witnessed a sharp decline in the numbers of working hours. This is not true for the Holy See mission. Job destruction are starting to unfold as many enterprises from the formal and the informal sectors are put into jeopardy because of lack of customers of change and customers' habit, disruption of supply chain. the lasting effect of the unemployment dimension of the crisis has not been yet fully revealed, but it is likely that more layoffs will take place between now and September. Second, the reduction in work time and employment is already having a severe impact on income. Many people from many different social groups will be affected and may not be able to access food, retain their housing, and have access to health and education. This reduction is happening both in the formal and in the non-formal sector of the economy. Third, the COVID-19 crisis has revealed rapidly and dramatically the insufficiency of health and security systems around the world. Linked to this in a bias between those in the formal and informal economy, since low and middle income countries have higher percentage of informal economy. A further gap exists between men and women and is accompanied by increased exposure to health and other risks among women. As known, workers in the informal economy are unregistered, unprotected, and not organized. During the crisis that has not yet fully unfolded, we should continue to exert a special care for our common good. Many of the possible and foreseen disruptions have not yet been fully manifested themselves in carrying decision will be required. First, it is essential mission of the Church to call upon all to work jointly, to serve and care for the common good and to ensure the participation of all in this endeavor. There should be no one left aside in a dialogue for the common good, aiming first at building, consolidating peace and trust among all. The most vulnerable youth, migrants, indigenous communities, the poor cannot be left aside in the dialogue, which should also bring together governments, employers, and workers. Second, it is also essential to the mission of the Church to ensure that all obtain the protection that required because of their vulnerabilities, illnesses, age, displacement, marginalization, or dependency. Social protection systems, which are facing high tensions, need to be supported and extended so to ensure the access to health services, food. The COVID crisis has already taken its toll on the most vulnerable, and they should not be negatively affected by the measures to speed up the recovery. In this moment of reflection, when we are trying to shape our future activities and discuss on the international agenda post-COVID-19, we should pay particular attention to the real danger. Forget those who are left behind. I am sure that you mentioned this many times today. The risk is that we may then be struck by even worse virus, that is of selfish indifference, where this idea is so often present in the teaching of the Pope. A virus spread by the thought that life is better if it is better for me, and that everything will be fine if it is fine for me. It begins there and ends up selecting one person over another, discarding the poor and sacrificing those left behind on the altar of progress, so-called. Looking in the future, it is essential for the Church and therefore for the action of the Holy See and to the ILO to support any action that corrects unfair or incorrect situation affecting employment relationship or making them completely subjugated to this idea of exclusion or violating the workers' fundamental rights. A threat is posed by theories considering profit and consumption as independent elements of the autonomous variables of economic life, excluding the workers and determining his imbalanced standard of living. The attention of Pope Francis has been translated in the middle of the crisis in practical actions through the creation of the new commission that will confront the challenges the world is facing in battling the coronavirus pandemic and what will be inevitably faced in its aftermath. Among us today, we have a number of the members of the project, The Future Work After Laudato Si, who are sharing their knowledge and vision in order to help the work of the Commission. The Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development has the ultimate goal through this tool to express the Church's concern and love for the entire human family in the face of the COVID pandemic. The structure of the Commission and the methodology of the work clearly reflect the conviction of the Holy Father that we are living through an epochal change and that the need to reflect on what will follow the crisis and the economic and social consequences of the pandemic, on what we will have to face, and above all, on how the Church can offer itself as a safe point of reference to the world lost in the face of an expected event. The involvement of all the networks of Catholic NGO, Caritas Internationalis, as well as the Office of the Papal Almoner, the Congregation for the Evangelical Peoples, the Apostolic Nuncios and Bishops' Conference witness the need of a broad outlook looking ahead. Unity is essential in confronting the pandemic, so the current crisis is not the time for indifference, selfishness, and division. The Holy See's support for a uniform regulation applicable to labor in all its various aspects as a guarantee for workers was expressed by Leo XIII and addressed on 14 March 1890 to Emperor of Germany, William II, who has convened an international conference in Berlin on the means to improve working class conditions. The conviction is that labor and therefore workers can enjoy guarantees, support, and enhancement if they avoid the game of deregulation. Moreover, legal rules must be oriented toward employment expansion, decent work, rights, and duties of human person. These are all necessarily means for his well-being, for his integral development, and for the common good. In concluding, the Holy See, the Catholic Church, and the ILO, according to their different natures and functions, will continue to implement their respective strategies, but surely they will still have the opportunity to cross their actions. I think all this interaction is so much needed. We have to continue to do our best to maintain this unity of action, circulation of information. I think you are very useful also to involving us as a mission of the Holy See. It's essential that we know what we are doing. And also please expect from us anything that we can do, although this is not that much, but still we are a permanent mission. We have a status in Geneva, and we would be extremely happy to serve you in your generous and elevated and honorable endeavor. Thank you so much to everybody and best wishes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, dear Nuncio, for these encouraging words, for the reconfirmation also that we are in the same boat, we are working on the same and sharing, and thank you also for sharing the concerns, the special concerns of the Holy See in this context, and also your generous offer, of course, to communicate further. So thank you for sharing your time with us, and indeed for the closing remarks, so that we are coming now to the end of the public event, so to say, which we could perform like that with 4 languages, even with by the help of the European Center of Workers' Questions. So thanks to you, and thanks to all the guest speakers for giving their inputs, for the lively discussions we had. And also thank you very much for the interpretation work. And now it's an announcement to do. We only have interpretation until 5 o'clock. And actually, we would like to end this public session now and rejoin after 5 minutes break of refreshment and stretching, etc., for the CIOs to reconvene and discuss a bit our strategy along the ILC. So as said before, we have interpretation until 5 o'clock only, and afterwards we have to continue in our normal working language, which is English, and then with individual translation if necessary via the chat. We can use the Zoom platform a bit longer, but I really would like to invite you to rejoin as a CIO members to look more into our strategy along the ILC now. Otherwise, for those who have to go, thank you for your patience with all the technical problems and hiccups, but it was working well. I hope you had enjoyed and the show. But you also found it interesting to join us here, and thanks for joining us from all over the world. I think it was a great experience. So please come back in 5 minutes time for those who are interested. The floor is then for us, the CIOs. And again, thanks a lot for your interest at joining us. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I see we are 26 participants now. I'm happy that we are so many, but also again have to announce at 5 o'clock the interpreters will stop, but we will be here in the Zoom platform united still in English, or maybe individual translation in the chat with the help of volunteers, multilingual volunteers. So welcome back to the internal discussion. Actually, it's a real new event, not a new event. I mean, the ILC is known to us, but it is a new experience for us. We do not meet, we will not meet each other in the aisles. We will not be in the same buildings like in the ILO and the Palais des Nations, in the cafeterias or the delegates bar, etc. Except for today, we do not have own side events. This is also a new experience, and exchanges with ILO experts. But we do, and we don't stay together in the same accommodation, or we do not go together for a beer, and we do not sit next to each other and next to other NGOs in the committees and plenary. So we cannot chat and exchange news easily. We cannot share our experiences in the committees.